Good evening. My name is Bailey, and today I'm going to be talking about what makes a person charismatic. On September 12th, 1962, John F. Kennedy had to provide one of the most powerful speeches the United States has ever seen. And what was this message? It was that by the end of the decade, the United States would put the first person on the moon. Just a few weeks prior to this speech, the Russians sent their own person into space for the first time. This created a sense of urgency for the United States. If we wanted to be at the top of innovation in space travel, then we needed to be the first to explore space ourselves. And how were we able to do this? Well, JFK had to provide a message that stuck with the audience. And how did JFK make this message stick? Well, JFK had to employ his executive voice, and he did this through a number of ways. He assumed the long term. He talked about how the mission was to be done by the end of the decade. Well, this speech was given in 1962. It wasn't going to be completed tomorrow or the day after that. JFK needed commitment from the people for the long term. JFK made followers believe that they were part of the message. Not everybody's going to be able to get their hands and their feet dirty working on the rocket ship or working on the physics to get the rocket in the air or being the astronaut to put their feet on the moon. Most Americans won't be able to do that at all. But he made the followers believe that they were part of the mission. Firstly, JFK kind of needed the tax dollars from everybody, so he wanted to make sure people were on board for this mission. And the message needs to be simple. He didn't use any big words. If you want everybody to be able to hear your message, then you're going to need to have all hands on deck. And in order to do that, everybody needs to understand what you're saying. If you're using big words, somebody that isn't as literate might not understand what you're saying. And so they won't be part of your mission and part of your message, applying to all of the American people. And he gave his followers talking points to remember. He said, "We don't do things because they are easy. We do things because they are hard." Having a talking point to leave the message, to leave the people with, lets that message survive the long term. It lets people continue saying that speech and the feelings and the emotions they had from it, and they could keep talking about it to the point to where I'm providing this speech today on a speech that he gave 50 years ago. If I'm going to lead you, I'm leading you somewhere. I have to convince you to take me where I want you to go. And I have to provide a message that takes you to action. It propels you to want to work for something. Using your executive voice does just that. A message can only stick as much as the person that is behind the message. Yes, the JFK speech was great, but the person that was giving the speech has to be charismatic in of themselves. If someone is not passionate about what they're saying, then how do they expect others to become passionate about the idea they are providing? Well, this is done through being an authentic leader. They inspire trust and loyalty in followers by consistently showing who they really are. They take the traits that people need and they twist it to fit their own personality. And this can be shown in different ways. You have to be true to yourself. You have to make value-based choices, knowing the things that you stand for and the things that will propel you to keep going forward. And you need to maintain a strict coherence between who you are and what you say and what you do. Princess Diana was a great example of this. She was able to show her generosity and her kindness while still being a person that people want to follow. She banned the use of landmines. She spread awareness of HIV and AIDS at a time when people that were diagnosed with the disease didn't know exactly how it worked and if it was contagious or not. And she would go up to people and get in close contact with them and shake their hand, showing that they are people too and we need to care about them. She helped the young and the homeless as well. She was somebody that was at the very top of royalty. She had everything she needed provided for her. Why would she need to go and help the people who were in need? She already had everything given. Well, she used her platform to spread awareness because she knew that nobody else was doing this. And she did all of this and was never afraid to break the rules and break the protocols in order to show who she is and what she stands for. A leader also needs to be able to fit the needs of the people at the time. It's not just who the leader is, but it's also what the followers want and how do they see the things that they want to be done and who's going to do that. And becoming a leader can really just be chalked down to luck. It takes being in the right place and being there at the right time. And it happens through having the traits that people want and to show that you are going to do the things that people see needs to be done. If you do not look and if you do not act like what your followers want, then they're not going to listen to you. You're not going to have the traits, you're not going to have the things that they see make somebody powerful and make something that they want to follow. Once you become the leader, it is not about the traits that you have, but it's doing the actions that you said you were going to do and following through with this. Adolf Hitler is a great example of this. After World War I, the Germans went through a terrible depression. They had to pay back all the reparations from the war, and this crippled their economy. There were a lot of problems in the world, and they needed something or someone to channel this anger towards. Adolf Hitler came in at just the right time, or the worst time. Hitler was someone who was able to speak for this growing animosity towards their situation. Before he came into power, Hitler was a nobody. He fought in World War I himself and did not really have anything going for him. He was able to give very powerful speeches, and that was about it. Whenever he started coming into power, he started to realize that the Germans needed somebody to be mad at. They needed somebody to be angry with. And Hitler came in and showed that anger. He showed that animosity toward their situation. And he took advantage of this, leading to a terrible war and terrible genocide across many nations, and millions of people died. What makes people charismatic also depends on the occupation that they are in. As stated previously, it depends on the traits that you have and what you do and what people expect from that occupation. Doctors and nurses, for example. A doctor is someone who needs to be very straightforward, a straight shooter, and they need to tell you the facts. They don't necessarily have to be the nicest. They're not in the room too much comforting you. They're just there to give you the best knowledge of your situation and how we're going to go from here. Nurses, on the other hand, they are a lot more bedside manner. They're supposed to comfort you while you're going through these weird times. They're supposed to always be in the room with you and helping you out and tending to those smaller needs. Actors and directors. An actor is someone who they have to follow what the director says. They have to be very photogenic and they have to take instruction well. They need to improv and use the things that are happening around them in the best way possible. Directors, on the other hand, they're a little bit more strategic. They're handling problems and telling people what to do. They have to be a lot more direct and get their message across. They're behind the camera, so they don't need to be too photogenic or wear a smile on their face or anything like that. Coaches versus athletes. A coach is someone who, when they tell you to do something, you do it. They have a plan and they need to formulate it. They take the strengths of the people under them and find the best way to apply it. And they also have to get the most out of the people under them. They need to understand the strengths and the weaknesses of their players and use it appropriately. An athlete, on the other hand, they need to be able to take instruction well, take that constructive criticism and apply it in a way where they can see results. Students and teachers. A student needs to be able to sit in a classroom, maybe answer questions every now and then, and absorb all the information that they can take in. They don't necessarily have to be able to use their words the best way or say the right things. The teacher, on the other hand, they have to be able to take this knowledge that they have and give it to people under them. They have to be able to look at the needs of the students that they have and apply it in a way that helps them. Bosses and employees. A boss is someone who they have to tell you what to do, and an employee is the opposite. They have to do what they're told. And what makes a good boss is not what makes a good employee, and what makes a good employee is not what makes a good boss. And firefighters and EMTs, for example. A firefighter, they have to see that burning building and they have to run into it with bravery. They're not afraid of putting their own body on the line in order to make sure that the whole situation is safe. An EMT, on the other hand, they need to be able to think quickly and act appropriately to the situation and get things done quick. What makes a firefighter great and what makes an EMT great are completely two different skills, but they're both first responders. In conclusion, what makes someone charismatic takes a number of different skills and different approaches. We saw in JFK's speech that we needed a message that stuck with the audience. It assumed the long term. It wasn't about today or tomorrow, but it was how committed are you to the entire mission that we have. It made followers feel that they were a part of something bigger, even if they don't touch the mission hands-on, that they are a part of it and part of that growing community. It made sure the message was simple, making sure that everyone can understand and take the message forward. And lastly, he gave followers talking points to remember. He wanted the speech to keep being said for years to come. And in order to do that, you need to give something that's stuck. The person needs to be the most authentic versions of themselves. We saw this with Princess Diana. It inspires loyalty and trust for your followers. And a charismatic person is able to twist their personality in order to fit the needs that the followers have. They remain true to themselves, they make value-based choices, and they maintain a strict coherence between who they are and what they say and what they do. And lastly, looking at the needs and the traits that a follower has and showing that so they listen to you. This was talked about with Hitler and the different occupations that people have. If you want somebody to follow you, you have to be able to represent the needs that everyone has. Thank you.